There are moments in life when something inside you suddenly wakes up. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't come with lightning or thunder, but it's powerful. A stillness settles inside your chest, and in that quiet space, a truth is born. It doesn't come from the outside world, it rises from within. Maybe it happens during your deepest struggle, maybe in the quiet hours of the night, or maybe while you're standing alone, far from the noise of people's opinions. But when it arrives, it changes everything. You realize something that cuts through illusions, through lies, through the chaos of your past. You see something, clearly, sharply, without filters. And for a moment you feel like you've just unlocked a secret the world has forgotten. But here's where many people make the mistake. They try to share it too quickly. They run to tell someone. They announce it, post it, preach it. But in doing so, they take something sacred and toss it into a world that isn't ready to hear it. And more often than not, that world tears it apart. Not because the truth was wrong, but because the timing was wrong. Because the soil wasn't ready. Because the ears were deaf and the hearts were closed. Some truths are not meant to be spoken the moment you find them. Some truths are meant to be lived first. The first reaction of a wise mind is silence. When a deep truth strikes your soul, don't rush to expose it. Let it settle in your bones. Let it change how you walk, how you see, how you respond to life. Let it shape you before you shape others with it. The world doesn't need more people talking. It needs more people transforming. And transformation starts in silence. Think of it like a seed. When you plant a seed in the soil, you don't dig it up the next morning to show people it's growing. If you do, you kill it. It has to stay underground, hidden, silent, nourished in darkness. It's only after time, after patience, after quiet tending, that the seed breaks through and shows the world what it's become. Your truth is that seed. If you dig it up too soon, just to impress, to convince, or to prove something to someone who doesn't understand, it dies. You have to learn to protect the sacred. We live in a world obsessed with instant sharing, but the most powerful awakenings happen in privacy. The most life-altering truths are not meant to be announced. They're meant to be honored, held, until they are fully alive in you, until they become so real, so deeply woven into your way of being, that you don't even need to speak them. People feel them in your presence. You see, when you carry truth with stillness, you become a mirror, not a megaphone. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. You just live. And those ready to see will see. Those who aren't ready, leave them. You're not here to force anyone to open their eyes. You're here to keep yours open. Sometimes the greatest strength is not in what you keep, but in your journey only. Some truths are for your journey only. Some truths are given to you as a gift, a private invitation to grow into who you were truly meant to be. Don't dilute that gift by turning it into performance. Don't chase validation for a vision only your soul was meant to see. When truth arrives, honor it with stillness. Honor it by walking differently, breathing differently, choosing differently. And in time, that truth will not only change you, but you ripple outward and change everything you protected to you. But if you serve, so were, all are only if you protect it, only if you resist the urge to give it away too soon. Because sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to keep it to yourself. But here's the truth. Most people won't understand what you've been shown, not because they're bad, not because they're ignorant, but because they haven't lived it. You can try to explain it. You can use words, stories, examples, but it still won't land. It won't sink in. Because understanding isn't just about hearing. It's about long, not about experiencing. And unless someone has walked through the fire you walked through, they will never truly grasp the light you carry now. And that's where the danger lies. Because when you share something sacred with people who haven't earned the lens you now see through, they start judging it, mocking it, dismissing it, not because it isn't true, but because it isn't their truth. It's yours. And in trying to make them see it, you may find yourself exhausted, frustrated, even doubting your own insight. That's how sacred truths get lost. by trying to force them into ears that were never meant to hear them. So be careful, be wise. Just because you've seen something clearly doesn't mean the world is ready to receive it. And that's okay. It doesn't make your realization less valid. It doesn't make your growth less real. In fact, it makes it more precious. Because you now carry something that cannot be taught. It can only be recognized by those who've been broken in the same places and healed in the same silence. You don't owe anyone an explanation for what your soul has survived. Not everyone has seen what you've seen. Some people still live in noise. They still chase illusions. They still run from the very pain that gave birth to your truth. If you try to hand it to them too early, they'll treat it like it's cheap. Not because it is, but because they don't know what it cost. That's why some insights must be kept in silence. Not forever, but until the moment they're strong enough to speak for themselves through the way you live. You'll come to realize that the more you grow, the less you need to explain, the less you seek approval. Because you'll understand that real understanding doesn't come from convincing others. It comes from alignment with yourself, with God, with purpose, and the people who are meant to walk beside you on this journey. They will recognize you, not because you told them who you are, but because your energy will speak louder than your words ever could. That's how you protect your truth. You let it show in how you carry yourself, how you treat people, how you stay calm when others panic, how you walk away when others try to start fires. That's the power of experience. It makes you silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand what's worth saying and what's not. There's a sacredness in having seen what others haven't, a quiet responsibility. You don't throw pearls before those who can't see their value. You carry them inside you, and when the time is right, life will open the doors to people who can understand, who've been through their own storm, and who will nod quietly. Not because you explained it perfectly, but because they know. So don't waste your breath trying to be understood by those who were never meant to walk your path. You're not here to be explained. You're here to evolve. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not in anger, but in peace, knowing that your truth wasn't for them, it was for you. It's not because they're bad. It's because the truth threatens the structure of the life they've built. It shakes the foundation of what they've convinced themselves is real. And so when you offer that truth, even gently, they push back, they argue, they attack, they label you. Not because you're wrong, but because they're not ready to face what that truth would demand from them. That's why some truths must be protected with silence, at least for a time. When you share too much too soon, especially with the wrong people, you open a door that invites not understanding, but resistance. They don't want to change. They don't want to confront themselves. And so they make you the problem. They project their discomfort back onto you because it's easier to reject the messenger than to wrestle with the message. There's wisdom in restraint. There's power in holding back what you know, not out of fear, but out of awareness. You have to learn when to speak and when to let silence speak for you. When the ground is not ready, planting seeds only wastes them. And when hearts are closed, words become noise. They don't grow anything. Sometimes the greatest form of strength is not in revealing your insight, but in knowing exactly when to keep it sacred. Not because you're hiding, but because you're preserving the power of what was given to you. Not every battle needs to be fought. Not every awakening needs to be announced. The deeper your insight, the more care it needs. It's not fragile, but it is sacred. It needs space. It needs time to root itself in your actions, not just your voice. There's also something else. When you speak a powerful truth before it has fully taken root in your being, you give others the power to shake it, their doubts, their mockery, their opinions. If you're not anchored enough, they can confuse you. They can weaken your resolve. But when you protect it in silence and let it grow inside you, it becomes unshakable. Not because others agree with it, but because you've lived it. Think about this. Sometimes, when you speak too soon, you actually stop growing. You start explaining instead of embodying. You start defending instead of deepening. You move into the world of reaction and lose your stillness. That's not the path of power. The path of power is the one that walks forward quietly. It's the one that lets truth become character, not just conversation. There will be a time to speak. A time when your presence, your energy, your life itself will speak louder than anything you could say today. But that moment only comes if you protect what you've been given, if you honor it, if you let it rise through every layer of your being until it doesn't need defending. It simply is. You don't have to prove anything. The truth doesn't require an audience. It only requires your alignment, your peace. And when you're aligned, when you lock in peace, people notice. Even if they can't explain it, they feel it. That's the kind of truth that lasts. That's the kind of truth that changes things. Not because it was shouted, but because it was lived. So, hold your truth close. Let it become strength in your silence. Because when you no longer need to speak it, that's when the world truly starts to listen. The world teaches us to speak quickly, to broadcast our insights, to post, to share, to shout. But truth does not grow in noise. It grows in stillness. It grows in the silence where you meet yourself without distraction. That's where the real transformation happens. Not when you say something different, but when you become something different. When you sit alone with truth and allow it to root itself in your life, it begins to change how you see everything. You start recognizing patterns you never noticed before. You begin reacting with grace where once you reacted with fire. You start choosing peace over proving a point. And that shift, that quiet shift, that's more powerful than 1,000 words. You don't need to announce what you've learned. When something is real, when it's part of you, it shows. You can't fake it. You can't hide it. People feel it in your silence, in your presence, in the way you carry yourself. You become someone they notice. Not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. You don't speak from opinion anymore. You speak from depth. And when you walk into a room, you don't need attention. Your energy does the talking. But to get to that place, you have to go through the solitude. You have to let truth grow in you before you try to give it away. You have to let it sharpen your awareness, strengthen your spine, soften your heart. That's how it becomes alive. That's how it becomes unshakable. Because here's what's real. If you rush to share before you've been shaped, you'll only pass on a version that's incomplete. And worse, when people challenge you, when they question or reject you, you might begin to question yourself. You might because you question yourself, but you might pull back, not because your truth was wrong, but because you hadn't fully stepped into it yet. That's why the silence matters. That's why solitude is part of the process. You're not just hearing the truth, you're learning how to carry it. Truth matures in quietness. It becomes your foundation, your anchor. And eventually you stop needing to talk about it because everything you do becomes a reflection of it. Your eyes, your words, your decisions, that's your discipline. Because no one can take powers it wasn't given by other from you. It was earned in silence. It was earned in silence. And when others see that shift in you, when they notice that you no longer react the way you used to, that you no longer chase what you used to crave, that you're calm in the storm, they'll wonder what changed. They'll feel something in you that speaks louder than noise ever could. That's the influence of someone who let the truth become flesh and not just speech. That's someone who chose depth over drama, who chose to become instead of to convince. So the next time a truth rises within you, don't rush, don't explain, don't debate. Let it settle. Let it refine your steps. Let it breathe into your routine. Let it change how you treat people, how you speak, how you walk through the world. And in time, it will no longer be a truth you found. It will be the person you've become. Because when truth is rooted in silence, no wind can shake it. And no voice can challenge it louder than the way you now live. It's one of the most painful things to accept, that you can't force awareness on someone who has chosen blindness. You can't gift vision to a heart that still clings to lies. And if you try to shine too much light into eyes that have lived too long in the dark, they won't thank you, they'll resent you, they'll reject you, not because you're wrong, but because they're not ready. There are people who are deeply invested in staying asleep, who have built their identity around their pain, their stories, their wounds, and when you bring them truth, you don't free them, you threaten them. Your presence becomes uncomfortable, your clarity confronts everything they've avoided, and instead of saying, thank you, they will try to pull you back into the same patterns, the same noise, the same blindness they call normal, because if you change and they don't, they'll have to face something they're not yet strong enough to face, that they too are capable of more, but only if they choose it. And that's what makes truth dangerous. Not because truth itself is harmful, but because it disturbs, it awakens. It shines a light on the parts of us we try to hide. That light doesn't always feel like love. Sometimes it feels like exposure, like loss, like discomfort. And for some people, that's too much to bear. So instead of stepping into the light, they close the door. And sometimes they slam it right in your face. That's why you must be discerning with your truth. You don't throw pearls into places where they'll be trampled. You don't pour light into spaces that have already decided to live in shadow, not because they're hopeless, but because they're not ready. And readiness can't be forced. It has to rise from within, just like it did for you. You have to protect what's sacred. If truth was given to you through suffering, through struggle, through silence, don't cheapen it by tossing it into places that haven't walked your road. Let your life speak louder than your words. Let your actions reveal what your voice never needs to say. Because when people are truly ready to wake up, they won't need a speech. They'll look at you and they'll feel something, a presence, a peace, a discipline. That's what changes people. Not information, but embodiment. And when they're ready, they'll come, they'll ask, not because you forced them to, but because they saw something in you that made them curious about themselves. That's how truth spreads. Quietly, like a flame passed from one candle to another, not by force, but by invitation. Until then, protect your fire.